various theories as to how Big Star got together this time around. We wanted to kind of set the record straight here. What exactly was behind this?
Some people from a college radio station in America called me up and asked me if I'd be interested in doing a gig on a day back last spring with just some people. They mentioned Paul Westerberg and Mike Mills and some other people, and said that also Jody, the drummer, would be there, and asked if I'd be interested in coming around and playing some too, And I said, well, yeah, I don't have anything to do that day. And then the next thing, everybody started asking me, saying, oh, what's this about a Big Star reunion? And I said, well, nothing. There's no truth to that. And then after that, one of the American BMG labels called me up and said, well, you're having a Big Star reunion, huh? Well, here's all this money if you'll let us record it. And I said, well, sure. So that's how it happened.
What was ostensibly this gig to be about, though? The Westerberg, Chilton, Mills, Jody thing? What was it to be billed as?
Oh, just kind of fooling around. I don't know.
Jam session,
yeah.
Allman Brother tunes.
Exactly.
There wasn't any plan.
No.
They didn't talk about doing Big Star material or
No.
aria material or replacements?
Not at all.
Is that right? It was just a blank slate?
Yeah.
How are we doing?
Yeah.
A lot of bands getting together again these days, not just these days, but the last decade or so. The Big Star reunion has been one of the more celebrated affairs. It's been very favorably received. How about on your part? You talked about the sort of the financial boost there being a major factor, but does your own affection for the music have much to do with it, or were you looking for more financial gain for this?
I don't know. I didn't really have any strong feelings about it one way or the other. I think if it had been proposed to me originally as doing this and without the record company offer, I probably would have said, nah, forget it. But, well, part of the deal with the record company was I said, well, yeah, sure, I'm interested in making some money, but, if it doesn't turn out well, I want to keep my options open to not use it. And after we'd rehearsed a time once with John and Ken, I knew that it was going to turn out pretty well. And then when we did the gig itself, actually, I knew that the gig turned out well. And they mixed it down and it sounded fine. But I don't really have any strong feelings about it. It's fun to do 5 or 6 times in a year to play these kind of gigs. But it's not... I don't know, coming to Japan and playing everything is really fun because the fans are all so crazy. So, it has its rewards and it's kind of fun in a small way. It's almost fun getting on stage and playing any kind of music anytime.
Isn't that the vindication factor, though? Like, after all these years, it turns out you kind of, I was right.
Well, we've had big fans for a long time. I mean, I first became aware that there was a real cult of fans around the band in the later 70s, I guess in 1977. So it's not like anything completely new for me. But it's kind of fun playing the gigs anyway.
Okay. Trip to the Orient, right?
It is. At all.
SPC, is it disorienting, or is it same as playing anywhere else?
Well, any stage is going to be the same, really, but the fans are so much more enthusiastic, and I mean, that makes it more fun, On a night when you're not feeling so good and you look out there and the people are just really, really into it, and it's sort of like something that's really tremendously important to them. It makes it more important to me.
It seems like the fans in like the UK or America would be more demonstrative, though. You think
No,
so?
no.
Really?
The fans in Japan are the most demonstrative fans I've ever seen.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
なるほど。はい。
First noticing the traces of a big star cult in the late 70s, but he says it was probably more like the early 80s when the general public started to hear about big star and how significant your music had turned out to be. And yet, in the early 80s, there were rumors of you being an alcoholic and down in your luck and various theories going around, various rumors going around. What actually was the story at that time? What sort of shape were you in?
Well, I did all my drinking in the 70s, really. From about 1972 or 3, I started drinking a lot, and I was taking a lot of drugs there in the early 70s, too. But I guess I pretty much quit that about 1975 or 6. But I was still drinking. I mean, you know, it was like when you're taking drugs a lot, sometimes you're drinking just to take the edge off the drugs, you know? And so when I finally got around to stopping taking drugs, you know, I hadn't even noticed how much I was drinking before that. I didn't even think about that. And, you know, I had a huge drinking habit. And I knew that I wanted to quit from, say, 1976 on, you know, but long about the end of 1981, I quit drinking. And at that time, I moved away to New Orleans. I'd lived in New York there for a couple of years in the 70s and lived in Memphis for a lot of the time. And at the end of 81, I moved to New Orleans, and I don't know, I was kind of frustrated about the music business at that time because I'd done a lot of work and made some records, you know, but I wasn't really seeing any money then about any of it. And so I just decided to wait until I had a proper offer from a record company to really do any more recording. And it was about 1984 before that came along. But there I was in New Orleans for, you know, 2 or 3 years, just doing odd jobs, various things.
Day-to-day type things?
Mm-hmm.
The Big Star records, the original records, never really sold very well. Can that be solely attributed to to negligence by the record company, or to?
I think so. Yeah. Stax Records could never sell a record by a white artist, anyway, and you know, they were hoping to at that time, but it was a new thing for them, and they were really overextended in every direction conceivable, and that was just another ill-conceived direction of theirs.
But I mean, their black artists were getting played on mainstream stations. What would prevent them from getting a white artist played on mainstream stations?
Well, we didn't have any problem getting played on the radio. The problem was getting records to stores. And when our first album came out, they used independent distributors, and the independent distributors would receive the whole Stax thing every month, and they'd see our record and, you know, throw it aside and say, here's the new Luther Ingram and the new Staple Singers record. Good. And in the case of the second record we made, Stax had made a deal with CBS for distribution, which about the time our record came out, I'm not sure what all was going on, but, you know, the corruption was rampant in Stax at that time, and I know that CBS, about the exact moment our record came out, put a complete clamp on distributing any Stax records and would not move one Stax record from the time our record came out.
So you were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. But we got plenty of radio play on both instances. You know, there were hits on the radio.
I guess having been in the box tops, people would have latched onto it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what all it was, but we had radio play like crazy.
Probably one of the most ironic band names in the history of modern music.
Well, it was intended that way from the beginning.
I see. Yeah. We intended that way, meaning that you really hadn't had major success planned? Or?
Well, it was just sort of a joke, you know. It was like the time of glam and glitter rock, you know, and and the name just seemed to be so. If I'd be interested in coming around and playing some too, and I said, well, yeah, I don't have anything to do that day. And then the next thing, everybody started asking me, saying, oh, what's this about a Big Star reunion? And I said, well, nothing. There's no truth to that. And then after that, one of the American BMG labels called me up and said, well, you're having a Big Star reunion, huh? Well, here's all this money if you'll let us record it. And I said, well, sure. So that's how it happened.
What was ostensibly this gig to be about, though? The Westerberg, Chilton, Mills, Jody thing? What was it to be billed as?
Oh, just kind of fooling around. I don't know.
Jam
about
session,
any billing. Yeah.
Allman Brother tunes.
Exactly.
There wasn't any plan.
No.
They didn't talk about doing Big Star material or Aria material or wordplay. Various theories as to how Big Star got together this time around. We wanted to kind of set the record straight here. What exactly was behind this?
Some people from a college radio station in America called me up and asked me if I'd be interested in doing a gig on a day back last spring with just some people. They mentioned Paul Westerberg and Mike Mills and some other people, and said that also Jody, the drummer, would be there. And